The text arrived at 11:18 on a Tuesday night, just as I was shutting down my laptop. Don't panic. We had to secure the villa in Santorini for Leora's partnership shoot. This is an investment in the family's future. It was from my mother, Evelyn Mercer. Calm, certain, written as if the decision had already been approved by someone more important than me. A second notification lit up my phone before I could respond. My bank. Unusual activity detected. $31,600 had been charged to a luxury travel concierge, not from my personal account, from my business reserve, the account I used to keep my tax escrow and my payroll buffer separate, the account I touched only when something mattered. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. The heater in my apartment clicked on and off, struggling against the late winter cold. My inbox was still open on my laptop, a half-written email to a client asking for a deadline extension I hadn't wanted to request. I didn't call my mother. I didn't text back, before anything else. I need to say this clearly. The entire content of the video is a fictional work created by the writing team of the Family Afterlight channel, intended to reflect common conflicts in families and society, helping viewers recognize their emotions and choose a more positive way of living. I read my mother's message again. Investment in the family's future. My fingers tightened around the phone. That money wasn't future-facing. It was survival. It was the difference between paying my junior analyst on time and asking him to wait. It was the line that kept my business steady and my life quiet. Another message came through, this time from my sister. Leora. Did you see the view yet? It's unreal. I pictured her smiling into her phone, already rehearsing captions, already assuming the ground beneath her feet would always be there. I typed a response, then erased it. Typed again, erased it again. Instead, I opened my banking app. Report transaction, I said aloud, just to hear the words take shape. The screen asked if the charge was authorized. I selected no. It asked if I wanted to temporarily lock all linked cards. Yes. It asked if I suspected misuse by someone with access. I paused for half a second, then confirmed. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. What I felt was something colder, clearer. If this moment feels familiar to you, if you have ever been expected to absorb a cost simply because you were capable, stay with me. Not because this story needs sympathy, but because silence is how these things keep happening. When the confirmation screen appeared, my phone vibrated softly in my hand. I set it down, untouched messages waiting, and realized something I couldn't unlearn. They hadn't asked because they didn't think they had to. The app processed my report in less than a minute. Your account has been temporarily restricted while we review this activity. I watched the confirmation screen as if it might change its mind. It didn't. The lock icon appeared next to every linked card, every transfer pathway my father had once insisted I set up for emergencies. My phone rang almost immediately. My mother. I let it ring. Then again. Then a third time. Longer than the others. I called my attorney instead. Isolde Mercer. He answered, his voice steady in the way you pay for. They took $31,600 from my business reserve. I said, without asking. There was a pause. Not shock. Calculation. Who is they? My parents. I said. And my sister benefited. Another pause. Heavier this time. Did you authorize the transaction? No. Then don't confront anyone yet, he said. Secure your assets first. Emotions make people careless. I'm not emotional, I said. I know, he replied. That's why I'm telling you this now. The call ended with instructions, not comfort. Change passwords, document everything. Say nothing. When I hung up, my phone buzzed again. A text from my father. Graham Mercer. Your mother says the bank flagged something. Don't overreact. I stared at his message. The casual authority in it. The assumption that he still had the right to manage my response. I typed back one sentence. I'm handling it. 3 words. No explanations. No permission. Leora sent a voice note next. I didn't open it. I didn't need to hear excitement layered over entitlement. Instead, I opened my laptop and created a new document. I titled it Risk Exposure. Accounts, properties, access points, every place my life intersected with theirs. This wasn't punishment. It was containment. My phone lit up again. This time, it was my mother, leaving a voicemail. I let it transcribe. We did this for you too, she said. You know that. Right. I closed the transcription without listening to the rest. For years, I had answered as a daughter. I had explained myself, softened edges, absorbed blame to keep things calm. That night, something shifted quietly into place. I wasn't responding as family anymore. I was responding as the account holder. The riverfront lodge outside Bozeman had never felt like a dream. It felt like work. I bought it 8 years earlier, when the roof sagged and the plumbing groaned every time the temperature dropped. I spent 2 summers there, learning which walls could be saved and which ones had to be torn down. Every improvement was paid for slowly, carefully. From contracts I finished and invoices I chased myself. My parents moved in after my father's last investment collapsed. 6 months, Graham said at the time. Just until things stabilize. That was 4 years ago. I hadn't been inside the house in almost a year when I pulled into the driveway. My mother's car was gone. Leora's wasn't. The porch light was still on, even though no one was home. I unlocked the door and stepped into a space that no longer felt neutral. There was a ring light set up in the living room, angled toward the windows. Boxes were stacked near the entryway, all addressed to my sister. Beauty products, clothing, PR mail. I recognized the rug beneath them. I'd argued with the contractor about that rug. It wasn't cheap, and it wasn't meant to be a backdrop. My phone buzzed. A text from Leora. Did you make it to Montana already? I didn't reply. I walked into the kitchen. The counters were cluttered with notebooks labeled content ideas and brand outreach. My father's mail was spread out on the table beside them. Bank offers, investment brochures, things he never followed through on. You didn't even ask, I said quietly, though no one was there. The house answered with silence. They hadn't paid rent. They hadn't paid utilities. They hadn't paid property taxes. Every month. The statements came to me. Every month. I covered them without comment because it was easier than explaining why I was tired. I remembered the last time I tried. You don't understand how much this costs, I had said to my mother on the phone. She laughed softly, the way she always did when she wanted to end a conversation. You own it, she said. That's what assets are for. Assets. Another word for something that didn't need to be thanked. I walked into the guest room that had once been my workspace. It was now painted a soft beige, carefully styled for filming. A tripod leaned against the wall. I imagined Leora standing there, smiling into a camera, telling strangers about her peaceful family home. I imagined my parents watching her, proud, convinced they had raised something successful. No one mentioned my name. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. We should talk when you get a chance, Graham wrote. I looked around the room I had paid for, remodeled, and maintained from a distance. They didn't live in my house. They lived in my absence. The first time my father asked for help, he sounded embarrassed. It's just temporary. Graham said, You know how these markets swing. I transferred the money without hesitation. He was my father. I had built my life believing that if I was steady enough, no one would fall. The second time, he didn't apologize. Your mother and I agreed this makes sense, he said, already assuming alignment. We'll square it once things turn around. They never did. By the third time, the requests stopped sounding like requests at all. They arrived as updates, statements of fact, decisions that had already been made. My mother learned to soften them. You're so good at handling these things, Evelyn would say. We're lucky to have you. Lucky. As if competence were a coincidence instead of something I earned alone. I remembered a dinner call from last year, Leora talking over both of them. My brand is finally getting traction, she said. Consistency matters. The house helps with that. It's not your house, I said before I could stop myself. The line went quiet. Evelyn cleared her throat. Isolde, don't be difficult. She's building something. So am I. I said, yes. My mother replied, patient and dismissive at the same time. But you don't need the same kind of support. That sentence had lodged itself somewhere deep. I carried it with me long after the call ended. Support, in my family, meant upward movement. It meant momentum that could be shown, photographed, explained to other people. Quiet stability didn't count. Maintenance didn't count. Paying for things without applause didn't count. Graham liked to talk about risk. Nothing grows without leverage, he used to say. But leverage only ever applied to me. I thought of the times I'd hesitated and been met with disappointment, the pauses on the phone, the subtle shift in tone when I didn't immediately agree. You've changed, my mother once said. She meant I had started asking questions, standing in that house, surrounded by evidence of their certainty. I understood something I had been slow to accept. This wasn't misunderstanding. It was design. They didn't see my contributions as generosity. They saw them as baseline, the cost of being included, the price of proximity. When I left the lodge that afternoon, I didn't take anything with me. Not the notebooks, not the boxes, not even the framed photos on the shelves. I locked the door behind me and drove toward the airport with one clear thought settling into place. I wasn't going there to talk. I was going there to confirm what they never thought I'd notice. I returned to the lodge 2 days later with a different purpose. This time, I wasn't there to remember. I was there to verify. The house was empty again, too quiet for how lived in it had become. I went straight to the study. That room had once been mine. Now it held my father's papers, stacked carelessly in drawers that used to contain my blueprints. I opened the filing cabinet where I kept my records. The tax folder was thinner than it should have been. I pulled it out, flipped through it once, then again, more slowly. Forms were missing. Statements that should have been there weren't. The space where they belonged felt deliberate. My pulse stayed steady. That scared me more than panic would have. I sat at the desk and opened my laptop, logged into my secure cloud storage, and searched the mirrored folder. Empty. Deleted. Okay. I said aloud. I accessed the recovery archive, the digital equivalent of checking beneath the floorboards. Files began to reappear one by one, faint and gray, marked with deletion timestamps. That was when I saw it. A scanned document labeled Authorization Form, Reserve Account. The date at the top read 7 months earlier. I opened it. The form granted full access to my business reserve account to Graham Mercer. Transfer authority, withdrawal authority, statement access, everything. At the bottom was a signature. My name. I stared at it for a long time before zooming in. It was close. Close enough that someone unfamiliar might accept it without question. But I knew my signature the way a surgeon knows their own hands. The angle was wrong. The pressure uneven. The final stroke lingered too long. It wasn't mine. I heard my father's voice in my head, casual and confident. You're always so busy. Let me help manage things. I remembered the afternoon he'd said it, the way my mother nodded beside him, already convinced. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. I found something. I said when he answered, "Tell me. There's an authorization form giving my father full access to my reserve account." I said, "It's forged." The silence on the other end of the line sharpened. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "Then this changes everything." He said, "This isn't misuse. This is criminal." I looked around the room, at the furniture I paid for, the walls I repaired, the windows that framed a life I no longer recognized. They've been pulling money for months. I said, small amounts, enough not to trigger alarms. and the Santorini charge too large to hide. I said, "A finale. Do not confront them." He said, "Secure the asset." I already am. When the call ended, I stayed seated, the document still open on my screen. This wasn't family confusion. This wasn't entitlement. This was intent. I walked through the house one last time, seeing it differently now. Every warm light, every staged corner, every assumption that the foundation beneath them was permanent. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "We need to talk. Your father is worried." I didn't respond. Another from Leora. "The internet is being weird. I can't access the shared card." I locked my phone and slid it into my bag. The Santorini charge hadn't broken something. It had revealed it. By the time I closed the front door and set the alarm, the decision was already made. Not out of anger, not even out of pain, out of clarity. The crime wasn't the trip. It was the permission they thought they had to take everything else. The lawyer didn't raise his voice when I told him what I intended to do. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, and listened all the way through. When I finished, he nodded once. "This is not retaliation." He said, "This is containment." "That matters." I replied, "It matters legally," he said, "and it matters emotionally, whether you admit it or not." I did admit it, just not out loud. He laid out the facts cleanly. The lodge was mine. The mortgage, paid. The title, clear. My parents had no lease, no written agreement, no standing beyond my silence. "If you leave the property in their control," he continued, "you expose yourself. They've already crossed into forgery. Next comes collateralization. Loans you didn't sign for, liens you didn't approve. I know." I said, "That's why it has to end now. Selling it is the cleanest option." He said, "Cash buyer? Fast close? Quiet?" I added. He gave a thin smile. "Especially quiet." That afternoon, I called Ronan Blackwood. I'd met him once at a municipal planning meeting years earlier. He owned properties the way other people collected watches, carefully, without attachment. When he answered, his tone was neutral. "This is Isolde Mercer," I said. "I know who you are." He replied, "What can I do for you? I'm offering you a riverfront property outside Bozeman." I said, "Below market. Cash only." There was a pause. Interest. Measured. "Why, it's occupied." I said, "And it won't be for long." He exhaled slowly. "Send me the details." We met 2 days later. No theatrics, no small talk. "I'm offering a discount," I said, sliding the folder across the table. In exchange for speed, how fast, he asked. 10 business days, I said. Possession transfers immediately after. And the occupant's family, I said. No lease. No notice beyond what the law requires. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "This isn't personal for you," he said. "It's precise," I replied. He smiled at that. Not warmly, respectfully. The paperwork moved quickly. Too quickly for my parents to imagine. They were still sending messages framed as concern. "Your father is stressed. We don't want misunderstandings. We can explain everything." I answered none of them. On the morning the contract was signed, my lawyer called. "It's done," he said. "Once the deed records, it's irreversible." "Good," I said. I sat at my desk afterward, staring at my hands. They weren't shaking. I waited for guilt to arrive. For doubt. What came instead was something steadier. Relief. I wasn't taking something away from them. I was removing the access they had already proven they couldn't be trusted with. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't check it. I closed my laptop, stood up, and let the silence settle. For the first time in years, nothing was leaking out of me anymore. I wasn't at the lodge when they came back. I was sitting at my kitchen table, my phone face down, a cup of coffee growing cold beside it. I knew the timing. Their flight landed mid-morning. They would drive straight from the airport, tired and sunburned, expecting the door to open the way it always had. My phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't answer. The third vibration came with a notification from the security app I had forgotten to disconnect. Motion detected at the front gate. I turned the screen over and watched. My parents' car stopped where it always did. Leora climbed out first, oversized sunglasses still on her face, phone already raised. My father followed, slower, scanning the house as if something had shifted and he hadn't been told what it was yet. Graham punched in the gate code. Nothing happened. He tried again, harder this time. "What do you mean it's not working?" My mother's voice carried faintly through the phone speaker. Leora laughed once, sharp and irritated. "The signal out here is terrible. I need to upload." My father tried the code a third time. The front door opened before he could reach the keypad again. Ronan Blackwood stepped out onto the porch, a folder tucked under his arm. He looked exactly as he had in the conference room days earlier, calm, unrushed, already in control. "Who are you?" my father called out. Ronan didn't raise his voice. "This property is now privately owned," he said. "You need to leave." My mother stepped forward. "There must be a mistake." "We live here." Ronan opened the folder and removed a single page. "You did," he said. "You don't anymore." Leora's phone dropped to her side. "Dad," she said, her voice suddenly small. "What is he talking about?" My father's face drained of color. He walked closer to the gate, gripping the metal bars. "You can't do this," he said. "My daughter owns this house." Ronan met his gaze evenly. "Not that daughter." The words landed heavier than shouting ever could. My phone buzzed again. Incoming call. My mother. I declined it and kept watching. Ronan held up the deed, turning it so the signature was visible even from a distance. He spoke briefly, then stepped back and pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the county sheriff," he said. "You're trespassing." Leora started crying, loud and uncontained. "This is insane," she shouted. "We just got back. I have meetings. I have contracts." My mother grabbed her arm. "Stop," she hissed. "People are watching." They were. A car slowed on the road. A neighbor stood at the edge of his driveway, pretending to check his mailbox. My father shook the gate once, then let go. His shoulders slumped in a way I had never seen. My phone rang again. And again. I turned the sound off. 10 minutes later, the feed showed a patrol car pulling up behind them. The officer spoke calmly. Ronan handed over the paperwork. The conversation didn't last long. When my family walked back to their car, they didn't look at the house again. Leora's phone stayed dark in her hand. My mother stared straight ahead. My father didn't lift his head. I closed the app and set the phone down. The silence that followed wasn't sharp. It was clean. I let the calls pile up before I answered any of them. My phone showed missed attempts from my mother, my father, and Leora in no particular order, as if panic had erased whatever hierarchy they once believed in. I made tea, waited for it to cool, then sat down and tapped the last voicemail. Evelyn's voice came through first, breathless and strained. "Isolde, pick up. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. The man at the house says he owns it. He says you sold it. We're standing outside. People can see us. Please call me." I listened to the rest without reacting. When it ended, I stared at the screen for a moment, then called her back. She answered on the first ring. "Thank God," she said. "You need to fix this." "I don't," I replied. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. "Your father didn't mean for any of this to happen. He meant to sign my name," I said. Silence. "That's not what this is about," she said finally. "We're family. This is exactly what it's about," I said. "You just didn't think I would see it." She lowered her voice. "You've embarrassed us." "I didn't," I said. I stopped absorbing it. My father's voice broke in, distant but angry. You went too far. I heard the phone shift, the tension in his breathing. You could have talked to us. I did. I said. For years. You just didn't hear me. We don't have anywhere to go, my mother said, her voice cracking now. We came home. You came back to a house you never owned. I said, that's not the same thing. She started to cry then, quietly at first. After everything we did for you, I didn't raise my voice. You took $31,600 without asking. You forged my signature. You erased records. That's what you did. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm not pressing charges. I said, not today. My father exhaled sharply. Relief. Unmistakable. But don't confuse that with forgiveness. I continued. It's a boundary. One you don't get to cross again. You can't just cut us off. My mother said. I already did. I replied. I ended the call before anyone could say my name again. The phone felt lighter in my hand when I set it down. I moved 3 weeks later. The new place overlooked Lake Mendota, all light and clean lines. Nothing ornate. I paid for it outright, signed my own name, and walked away with keys no one else had copies of. The first morning there, my phone rang once, an unfamiliar number. Isolde, a woman said when I answered. She introduced herself as Leora's former brand manager. She said you handled the finances. I just wanted to confirm you're no longer involved. I never was. I said. There was a pause. Then a quiet, thank you for clarifying. After that, the calls stopped. I heard things, eventually, that my parents rented a small place near the highway, that my father stopped talking about investments, that my sister took a job answering phones at a dental office and deleted half her social media. No one told me directly. No one asked for help. On a Friday evening, my attorney emailed to confirm the final paperwork had cleared. No liens, no loose ends. You're protected, he wrote. I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet, letting that sentence settle into my body. Protection, I realized, wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It felt like breathing without bracing for impact. I thought about the years I spent believing love was proven through endurance, through staying, through paying costs no one else could see. Now, the only voice in the room was my own. If you're listening to this and you recognize the weight of being the one who holds everything together, don't rush past that recognition. Sit with it. Share this story with someone who needs permission to stop carrying what isn't theirs. I didn't win anything. I reclaimed it. The lake outside my window stayed still as the light faded, and for the first time in a long while, nothing was asking anything of me at all.